My cracked iPhone buzzed with a calendar alert just as my father told the judge I was mentally unfit, and I stayed quiet, wondering why he looked so sure I would break today. He stood 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell his cologne over the lemony floor cleaner the courthouse always uses. He spoke like he was presenting a quarterly report, not trying to take my legal rights. "She drifts," he said, voice sharp, confident. "No husband, no stable career. She lives in a tiny apartment like a teenager. She can't manage money. She can't manage herself." I didn't flinch. I didn't blink too fast. I didn't do any of the things people expect a woman to do when she's being framed as fragile. Because the metal detector had already screamed at me this morning, and I'd already swallowed the embarrassment like a pill. I was wearing a cheap cardigan with a snag at the cuff. My tote bag was scuffed. My hair was in a loose knot that looked like I didn't care. I looked exactly like the daughter he wanted the court to see. "My name is Tegan. I'm 31, and I work in forensic compliance, the kind of job where you learn to hold your face steady even when the truth is screaming." The judge, a woman with tired eyes and a voice that didn't waste words, watched my father talk himself into a frenzy. He paced at the podium like the courtroom was his living room. "She won't even speak," he added, leaning forward. "That's catatonia. That's instability. Your Honor, I'm asking for conservatorship before she destroys what her late grandmother left her." There it was, the weapon he loved most. Not concern, not love. Money dressed up as protection. I kept my hands folded in my lap, thumbs still, nails trimmed. Calm is a language in court. Calm says I'm not the problem. My father hated calm. He needed me emotional. He needed tears. He needed hysteria. He needed to point at me and say, "See, look." So I gave him nothing. But my mind slid backward anyway, the way it always does when a person tries to rewrite your identity in public. 3 months earlier, it was Thanksgiving at his house, the one with the oversized porch and the staged pumpkins that never got touched. He had pulled me aside in the kitchen while everyone else laughed in the dining room, and he spoke low, like a secret. "You're not going to embarrass me tomorrow," he said, eyes narrowing. "No drama about the trust, no sudden ideas, no big girl independence speech." I remember staring at the refrigerator covered in family photos where I was always on the edge of the frame, half cut off. A daughter, but never centered. "I'm not here for a speech," I said. He smiled like he'd won something. "Good, because you need guidance, Tegan. You've always needed guidance. Your grandmother spoiled you and now look, still floating." Floating. He used that word for years, like my life was a balloon he expected to hold by the string. That night, he handed me a plate and told me to bring it to the table, and I did. I always did. And while he carved the turkey and soaked up attention, he had no idea that my work laptop, closed inside my tote bag, held a file labeled with his name and a date stamped in red. Because 2 weeks earlier, a woman from his office had found my professional email address and sent me one sentence that changed everything. "I think your dad is using your name to cover something. Please be careful." No greeting, no signature. Just fear. I read it sitting in my car outside a grocery store, hands on the steering wheel, the heater blasting because the November wind had teeth. I should have driven away. I should have pretended I never saw it. But I've never been good at pretending when the numbers don't line up. So I did what I always do. I stayed quiet, and I started pulling threads. The first thread was small, a credit alert, a new inquiry I didn't recognize. The second thread was uglier, a document request that came to my work inbox from a bank I had never used. The third thread, the one that made my stomach go cold, was a scanned signature that looked like mine. Except it was. It was mine, but wrong, like someone had practiced it. The next morning, I called the bank and asked one polite question, just one. "Can you tell me what address is on file for that application?" They said it without hesitation, an address I knew by heart. My father's office suite. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, feeling something inside me detach. Not sadness, not even anger yet. A clean, silent snap. The kind you feel when you finally understand you were never a daughter to him. You were an asset. And assets get controlled. Back in the courtroom, my father kept talking, listing my failures like he was reading a menu. She lives alone. No husband, no kids, no stability. She can't keep a job, she can't keep a home. He said it like being alone was proof of sickness. But being alone is how I survived him. The judge glanced at me. Her eyes didn't soften. They didn't need to. She wasn't here to comfort me. She was here to decide whether my life belonged to me or to the man trying to package me as incompetent. My father's lawyer, Grayson, shifted beside him, fingers tight around a legal pad. He'd been confident when we walked in. Now his knee bounced under the table. I noticed because I notice everything. That's the job, that's the curse. My father didn't notice. He was too busy performing. "She's medicated," he said. "Look at her, she's blank." I didn't move my face. But inside, my thoughts were not blank at all. Inside, I was counting. Not minutes. Mistakes. Because he was making them out loud, in front of a court reporter under oath. And he didn't even realize it. I thought about the first time he tried to help me in a way that felt like a cage. It was 2 years ago, a Tuesday afternoon, and I was eating microwave ramen at my kitchen counter when someone banged on my door hard enough to rattle the frame. 2 police officers stood there, hands resting near their belts, posture stiff. "Ma'am," one said, eyes scanning my apartment. "We have an emergency hold order. We need you to come with us." My mouth went dry so fast it felt like my tongue stuck to my teeth. "What?" "Your family reported you as a danger to yourself," the officer said, and he sounded like he hated saying it. I remember the humiliating heat crawling up my neck, the sudden awareness of my messy sink, my laundry basket, the cheap lamp in the corner. Like my entire life was about to be judged by strangers in uniform. "Who reported me?" I asked, even though I already knew. The officer glanced at his paperwork, then at me, and his expression changed slightly. Confusion. "This says, your father. He claims you've been spending large amounts of money you don't have, that you're delusional about running a company." My stomach flipped, not from fear, but from the sheer audacity. Because on my laptop, still open on the counter, was a screen share with my manager discussing a contract compliance review for a logistics vendor. Real work, real numbers, real paper trail. I turned the laptop toward them without a word. The officers leaned in. One of them exhaled through his nose. "This is what we were told," he muttered. I didn't beg, I didn't cry, I didn't raise my voice. I asked one small question. "Can you tell me which doctor signed this hold?" They told me. A name I had never heard. So I did the only thing that makes sense when someone tries to erase you with a signature. I documented it. Screenshots, timestamps, the hold paperwork, the officer's badge numbers, the call log from the dispatcher. Then I waited. Quietly. Because if I had fought him loudly, he would have fed on it. He would have played victim. He would have painted me as unstable again. But if I let him believe his plan worked, he would get careless. And careless men leave evidence. That's when I made my first real decision. Not revenge. Protection. I started building a wall he couldn't climb. I moved money into accounts he couldn't reach. I locked my credit. I changed my passwords. I stopped sharing even small details about my life. I let him think I was still floating. And while he made jokes about my sad little apartment, I met with a financial attorney and asked what happens when a parent tries to file for conservatorship without cause. The attorney didn't look surprised. He just sighed like he'd seen the same story too many times. "It happens," he said, "usually to people with money or people someone wants to control." I stared at the folder in front of me and felt my pulse slow. Control. That was always his favorite word, even when he didn't say it. So I built something he wouldn't recognize. A structure, a paper trail, a trap that looked like an offer. I approached a private lender through an intermediary, not with drama, not with accusations, just numbers. I asked one question. What debt is he carrying that he thinks nobody sees? The answer came back in neat, tidy lines. Loans, lines of credit, equipment financing, a lease he signed personally when his business couldn't qualify on its own. My father was good at acting successful. He wasn't good at being it. And the most dangerous thing about my father wasn't his temper. It was his pride. Pride makes men sign things they don't read. Back in the courtroom, the judge finally raised a hand. "Mr. Harlan," she said, voice flat. My father's head snapped toward her. "It's Hartwell, Your Honor." She didn't correct him. She didn't apologize. She didn't care about his ego. "Mr. Hartwell," she repeated, and the way she said it made his title sound small. "Your petition claims your daughter has no income." "Yes," he said quickly. "She's unemployed. She's supported by the trust." The word trust sounded sweet on his tongue, like he could taste it. The judge glanced down at a file in front of her. "And you are requesting immediate control of her accounts." "Yes," he said, "for her safety." I watched his hands, the slight tremor in his fingers. He always got like this when he could feel power within reach. Grayson leaned closer to him and whispered something. My father ignored him. He always ignored warnings. Then the bailiff walked forward and placed a new document on Grayson's table. It wasn't thick, just a few pages. But it landed like a brick. Grayson's face changed so fast it was almost funny. His mouth parted slightly, and he stared down like the paper had suddenly turned into a snake. My father kept talking, unaware. "She can't even maintain a relationship," he said, voice rising again. "No husband, no career path, and she hides in some tiny place downtown. She's ashamed. She's unstable." Grayson swallowed hard and didn't look up. My heart didn't race. It settled, because I recognized the seal at the top of the document from where I sat. Not because I'd seen it online. Because I had personally requested it. The judge's gaze moved from Grayson to my father to me. Her expression didn't soften, but something in her eyes sharpened, like a blade being drawn. And right then, in that exact second, my father finally noticed his lawyer's panic. "What is it?" he hissed, leaning over. Grayson didn't answer fast enough. My father's confidence cracked, just slightly. Quick real-life pause. "Some nights I'm editing and I want to quit, but then I see your comments and I keep going. Like, subscribe, and tell me your city, state, or country. All right, now let me take you back." Because the truth is, the courtroom wasn't the beginning. It was the end of a long, quiet setup. A setup that started the day I realized my father didn't need me broken. He needed me legally powerless. After that police visit, he didn't call to apologize. He called to test the damage. "You scared me," he said, voice gentle, like he was the victim. "You can't do things like this to your family, Tegan." I remember staring at my phone in disbelief. "Do things like what?" "Make us worry," he said. "Disappear, act secretive, you're not well, I can help you if you stop resisting." I said one word, "Okay." And he relaxed instantly. That's the part people don't understand about silent revenge. You don't correct them. You agree, just enough so they think they've won. He started calling more after that, checking in, asking questions disguised as care. "How's your rent? Are you eating? Are you taking your meds? Are you still working that little job?" I answered softly. I kept it vague. I let him picture me small and failing. And while he pictured that, I built. I filed. I documented. I signed nothing he didn't send through proper channels. I stopped meeting him alone. I stopped walking into conversations without a record. Then, when his office sent me a lease renewal notice by accident, addressed to me instead of him, I finally saw it. A corporate entity listed as the leaseholder. A name that meant nothing to him. But it meant something to me. because that same corporate entity also showed up in the bank documents connected to the suspicious application. My father was routing things through layers, like a magician, assuming nobody would bother to look behind the curtain. So I looked, and what I found wasn't just financial mess. It was intent. It was him moving money, using other names, using my name, using my grandmother's name like chess pieces. And the more I uncovered, the more I realized he wasn't trying to protect me from myself. He was trying to protect himself from exposure. That's why he needed conservatorship. Not to save his daughter. To silence a witness. Back in the courtroom, the judge lifted her pen, tapped it once, and said, "Mr. Hartwell." My father straightened, ready to perform again. "Yes, Your Honor." She looked at him for a long, uncomfortable beat, then asked one quiet question that made the room feel colder. "Do you know who your daughter's landlord is?" My father blinked. "Her landlord?" Grayson made a sound like he was choking. The judge nodded toward the document on his table. "You should read what was just filed," she said. My father grabbed the pages, eyes moving fast, faster, then suddenly stopping. His face went pale in patches, like the blood couldn't decide where to stay. He looked up at me, confused, not angry yet. Confusion first. Because confusion is the moment a person realizes their story is failing. The judge's voice stayed calm, almost bored. "It appears," she said, "that the petitioner is attempting to place someone under conservatorship while owing that same person a significant amount of secured debt." My father's lips parted. "That's not possible." And for the first time since we walked in, I let my eyes meet his. Not with hatred. Not with fear. With something colder. Certainty. Because I knew what the next page said. And I knew he was about to read the name he'd spent years mocking. His eyes dropped back to the page, and I watched the exact second his brain refused to accept what it was seeing. At first, he tried to read it like he could outsmart it. He mouthed the first line, then the second. Then his jaw tightened, and he flipped the page too fast like the paper was the problem. Grayson's hand hovered over his elbow, not quite touching him, the way you hover near someone who might fall. My father whispered, barely audible, "This is a mistake." Judge Calla Alvarez didn't react. She didn't need to raise her voice because the room was already listening to her. "It is not a mistake," she said. "It is a recorded lien and a sworn declaration." My father's face did something I'd only ever seen once before, the day his favorite client fired him in the lobby of his own office. His confidence didn't shatter like glass. It compressed, it folded inward. He looked up at me again, and his eyes searched my face for the daughter he could bully back into shape. He didn't find her. He found the same quiet stillness he'd been calling instability. He turned to the judge, trying to reclaim the courtroom with volume. "Your Honor, this is exactly why she needs supervision. She's filing nonsense. She doesn't have money. She doesn't have assets. She's always been impulsive. She probably got scammed." I stayed seated. I didn't sigh. I didn't smirk. I let him keep stepping into the rope he'd been bragging about. The judge slid her reading glasses down her nose and looked at the document again, as if confirming something she already knew. "Mr. Hartwell," she said, "are you denying you signed a personal guarantee for your firm's line of credit 2 years ago?" His mouth opened, then closed. He knew the answer was yes. He had signed everything back then, anything that kept his image afloat. "That's different," he said quickly. "That was standard. All owners sign those." "Owners," the judge repeated, tasting the word. "And who are the creditors on that guarantee according to this filing?" Grayson's throat moved like he swallowed a stone. My father looked down again, then spoke the name like it burned. "Atlas." His tone tried to make it sound like a joke, like a fantasy, like me playing pretend. But the judge didn't smile. "Atlas," she repeated, then opened another folder, one thicker with tabs. My father's eyes flicked to it, and I saw panic leak into his posture. His shoulders were too high, his hands clenched and unclenched on the table. Grayson leaned in and whispered, "Please, stop talking. Let me handle it." My father jerked his arm away without looking at him. He hated being handled. "You're being manipulated," he said to the judge, pointing at me like I was a stain. "She's trying to confuse you. This is her tactic. She goes silent and lets people project. That's how she tricks them." My stomach tightened, not from fear, but from how familiar the accusation was. He'd been saying it my whole life. When I didn't cry at 14, he said I was cold. When I didn't beg at 19, he said I was arrogant. When I didn't defend myself at 26, he said I was unstable. No matter what I did, my quiet always threatened him, because quiet meant I wasn't dancing for his approval. Judge Alvarez held up one page, pinching it between two fingers. "This is not confusion," she said. "This is your signature." She turned the paper so he could see it. He leaned forward, squinting like the ink might change if he stared hard enough. His signature was there, looped and confident. And directly beneath it, in a section labeled Guarantor Acknowledgement, was a clause he'd never read because he always assumed paperwork was beneath him. Default on character. That phrase sat on the page like a trapdoor. My father's eyes skimmed over it too quickly at first. Then he went back. His lips moved again as he reread it. Grayson muttered, "Oh my God," under his breath, like he'd just realized what kind of case he'd agreed to represent. My father snapped his head toward him. "What?" Grayson didn't answer. Because lawyers don't like to speak on record when they can feel the ground shifting under them. The judge's voice cut through. "This clause," she said, tapping the page lightly, "accelerates the debt in the event the guarantor publicly disparages the creditor or the creditor's principal on record." My father's face twitched. "That's not enforceable. That's ridiculous." Judge Alvarez didn't argue. She just looked at him. "Yet you signed it." He pushed back from the table slightly, like distance could protect him. "I didn't know," he said, and it came out smaller than he intended. The judge's eyes flicked to me again, a silent permission. But I still didn't speak. Not yet. Because the next twist was better when he delivered it himself. My father lunged for a different angle, because he always had to win. "This is why she needs a conservator," he said, louder now, voice shaking. "She's making up corporations. She's playing games with shells. She thinks she's powerful. She lives in a tiny apartment. She doesn't even own a car. She's trying to intimidate me with paperwork." He was so close to the truth. Yes, I had used paperwork. Because paperwork is what men like him respect. More than blood, more than history, more than shame. Paper is the only thing that can't be gaslit. Judge Alvarez nodded once, then said, "Bailiff, please provide Exhibit C." The bailiff walked forward again and placed another document on the table. This one was different. Thicker, heavier. It landed with a sound that made my father flinch. His eyes went wide, not because he knew what it was, but because he could feel the weight of it. Grayson reached for it first, scanning, then turned his head away like he couldn't stomach it. My father snatched it from him. His fingers trembled as he flipped through the pages. He stopped on the first page, and the color drained out of his face so fast it looked unnatural. He whispered, "No." Judge Alvarez leaned back in her chair, hands folded. "According to the deed transfer recorded 18 months ago," she said, "the commercial suite your firm occupies is owned by Atlas Property Holdings." My father blinked rapidly, as if his eyes were malfunctioning. "That's a corporate entity," he said, voice cracking. "It's not a person. I pay rent to an entity." "And who is the registered agent and managing member of that entity?" the judge asked. My father looked down again, following the line. His mouth opened. No sound came out. He read my name. He read it twice. Then he looked up at me, and for the first time in my life, I watched him try to figure out who I was without his narrative. It terrified him. Because his narrative was the only thing that made him feel safe. "You can't," he said finally. "You can't own that, you don't have money." That one hit me, not like a punch, but like a memory. I heard his voice from years ago, standing over my shoulder as I filled out scholarship forms. "You don't have money." I heard it again at 23, when I told him I got a promotion. "You don't have money." I heard it again when I moved into my own place and didn't give him a key. "You don't have money." He had repeated it so often he'd started to believe it was physics. Like I couldn't exist without him, defining my limits. Judge Alvarez didn't let him spiral too far. "Mr. Hartwell," she said, "your petition claims your daughter is incapable of managing funds. Yet the evidence indicates she has managed significant assets and legal obligations without incident." My father shook his head violently, like he could shake the truth off. "She's hiding behind companies," he said. "That proves she's unstable. Why would a stable person hide?" I almost laughed at that. Because the reason was sitting right in front of us. I hid because I had a father who tried to erase me. I hid because he sent police to my door. I hid because he forged my name. I hid because, if he knew what I was building, he would have tried to destroy it before it existed. And now, because he didn't know, it was too late. Grayson finally found his voice, but it was thin and careful. "Your Honor," he said, standing, hands raised slightly, "we need a recess to review these filings. This is outside the scope of the original petition." Judge Alvarez's gaze didn't even flicker. "No," she said, "we are not taking a recess because the petitioner's counsel failed to conduct due diligence." Grayson flinched like she slapped him. My father stood up, chair scraping loudly. "This is a setup," he barked. "This is entrapment, she baited me." Judge Alvarez's eyes narrowed. "You baited yourself," she said, cool as ice. "You came into this court and made allegations about your daughter's competence, on record, under oath, with no medical documentation that withstands scrutiny." My father's mouth moved. His words stumbled over each other. "She was held," he said, 2 years ago, an emergency hold." My chest tightened. The old heat rose in my face, the humiliation of 2 officers in my doorway, the way my neighbors had peeked through blinds. But I didn't show it. I let him say it. Because the next twist was buried in that lie. Judge Alvarez turned a page in her folder. "I'm glad you brought that up," she said. "That hold was flagged as malicious reporting. The physician's signature on the order was investigated." My father froze. His eyes slid to Grayson. Grayson stared at the table like he wanted to disappear under it. The judge continued, voice steady, each word a nail. "The report indicates the physician did not personally evaluate your daughter. The order was initiated based on third-party claims, specifically yours." My father's face went slack. He tried to speak, but his tongue seemed to fail him for the first time. And I felt something inside me settle, because this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about the system. He tried to use the system to cage me. And now the system was looking back at him. Judge Alvarez leaned forward slightly, and the courtroom felt smaller. "Tell me," she said, "why would a concerned father initiate a psychiatric hold without evaluation, then file for conservatorship, while also owing his daughter secured debt and renting office space from an entity she controls?" My father swallowed hard, his throat bobbed. He looked around the courtroom, as if someone might rescue him with a distraction. No one moved. No one came. Because when the truth hits, it isolates you. He tried one last move, the one he always used when he was cornered. He turned to me and softened his face, forcing something like sadness. "Tegan," he said, voice quieter, almost pleading. "Stop. This is family. We can talk. We can fix this privately." There it was. Family as a weapon. Family as a muzzle. Family as a way to drag me back into the old room where he controlled the rules. My hands stayed folded, but my nails pressed into my palm. because part of me wanted to stand up and scream. For every holiday he ruined, every belittling joke, every invisible cut. But screaming would have been his victory. He wanted me loud. So I stayed quiet. And when I finally spoke, I spoke like a professional, not a daughter. I stood slowly, smoothing my cardigan, letting the courtroom see exactly what he hated. Control. Your Honor, I said, voice calm, may I address the court? Judge Alvarez nodded once, briefly. I turned my head slightly toward my father, not fully facing him, because he didn't deserve my full attention. I didn't come here to punish him, I said. I came here to stop him. My father scoffed, trying to recover. Stop me from what? Caring about you. I looked at the judge, not at him. The petition was filed the same week the bank notified me of an attempted credit application in my name, I said. The address listed was his office. The contact number listed was his office. The email on file was his assistant's. A ripple moved through the room. Not loud, just a shift. Like people adjusting in their seats when a story turns. My father's face tightened. That's a lie. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I did the silent revenge thing. I asked one small question. Would the court, like the bank's fraud investigator on speaker phone? Grayson's head snapped up. My father's eyes widened in panic. Judge Alvarez didn't hesitate. Yes, she said, call them. My father's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Because he knew exactly who would answer. And he knew what that person would say. My hands didn't shake as I pulled out my phone. They used to, back when he still had the power to make me feel 12 again. Now my fingers moved with the clean certainty of someone finishing a job. I tapped the saved contact, the one I'd labeled with a neutral name so it wouldn't stand out if anyone ever saw my screen. The phone rang once, twice. My father stayed standing, but his posture had changed. He wasn't tall anymore. He was just loud. Judge Alvarez nodded at me. Proceed. The call clicked, and a woman's voice came through the speaker, professional and calm. This is Dana Mercer, Fraud Investigations. I swallowed once, then spoke evenly. Dana, this is Tegan. I'm in court. The judge needs confirmation on the attempted credit application in my name. My father made a strangled sound. Grayson's hand flew up, as if he could catch the words in the air before they landed. Dana didn't hesitate. Yes, we opened an investigation after you reported the application. It was submitted using your legal name and social security number. The listed business address matched Hartwell Financial Partners, Suite 310, Calderon Building. The phone number on the application matched the main line for that office. My father shook his head fast, like a child caught with candy. That's not true. That's not true. Judge Alvarez lifted one finger. Silence. Dana continued, voice steady. Our system captured the originating IP address. It traces back to an office network registered to Hartwell Financial Partners. We also confirmed the application packet used a scanned signature that did not match your verified signature on file with our institution. My father's face went gray around the mouth. His lips parted, and for a second he looked like he might actually faint. I felt a strange, quiet grief for that moment. Not because he was suffering, but because the little part of me that once wanted a normal father finally understood it was never going to happen. Judge Alvarez leaned forward slightly. Ms. Mercer, in your professional opinion, was this attempted identity fraud? Dana answered without emotion. Yes, it meets the threshold. We preserved records and flagged the account. We also prepared a referral packet if law enforcement requests it. Judge Alvarez nodded once. Thank you, you may disconnect. I ended the call and set my phone back in my lap like it was nothing. The room didn't breathe for a long second. My father tried. He tried to force air back into his narrative. He pointed at me, voice cracking with rage and fear. She's manipulating people. She always does this. She makes documents. She hides behind corporations. She is sick. But his voice didn't fill the room anymore. It bounced off the wood and died. Judge Alvarez looked at him like he was a problem she'd already solved. "Mr. Hartwell," she said, "your petition for conservatorship is denied, dismissed with prejudice." My father jerked as if the words physically hit him. No, you can't just." Judge Alvarez raised her hand again, and it was like a switch flipped. The courtroom went still. "I am not finished," she said. "The evidence suggests you initiated a malicious mental health hold, attempted identity fraud, and filed a bad faith petition to deprive an adult of her rights while concealing your own financial exposure. I am referring this matter to the appropriate authorities." My father's eyes darted toward Grayson in panic, like the lawyer could reverse time. Grayson stood slowly, clearing his throat, trying to salvage something. "Your Honor, my client." Judge Alvarez cut him off. "Counsel, you will remain after this hearing. I have questions about your due diligence and your disclosures to the court." Grayson's face tightened with dread. My father looked back at me, his eyes wide now, almost pleading. "Tegan, stop. We can fix this. We can talk at home." Home. The word slid into the room like a trap. For a second, I saw myself at 16, trying to explain a panic attack to him, while he told me I was being dramatic. I saw myself at 20, calling him from a hospital waiting room after a car accident, and hearing annoyance in his voice because it interrupted his dinner. I saw myself at 28, standing at my own front door, watching 2 officers read me a hold order that had his fingerprints all over it, and still hearing him say later that it was for my own good. I stood, slow and steady, and faced the judge. "Your Honor," I said, "there is one more matter related to the filings." Judge Alvarez nodded. "Go on." I turned slightly, addressing the court, but my eyes stayed on my father. Not because I needed him to see me, but because I wanted him to hear me. On record, without anger, without tears. "Atlas Property Holdings is the landlord of Hartwell Financial Partners," I said. "Atlas Advisory is the secured creditor of Mr. Hartwell's personal guarantee. Both entities are managed by me." My father's jaw trembled. He whispered, "That's impossible." I continued, calm. "As part of the lease, any attempt by the tenant to harass, stalk, or interfere with the property owner constitutes a breach. The filing of this petition, alongside the prior misuse of a mental health hold and the attempted identity fraud, meets that breach threshold." Grayson's eyes widened, because he finally understood this was not a family argument. This was a compliance file with a heartbeat. Judge Alvarez's gaze sharpened. "Are you requesting enforcement?" "Yes," I said. "I am requesting immediate termination of tenancy and a writ of possession for the commercial suites." My father's head snapped up. "You can't evict me. We have a lease." Judge Alvarez didn't look at him. She looked at me. "Do you have notice documentation?" I reached into my tote bag and pulled out a single envelope. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't thick. It was just paper. The kind that changes lives quietly. "I filed notice this morning," I said. "It was served to the suite at 8:06 a.m. by a process server. The breach clause permits immediate termination with proof of bad faith legal action against the owner." Judge Alvarez reviewed the proof quickly, then nodded once. "Granted," she said. "Writ will be issued. The commercial tenant will vacate within 24 hours. Failure will result in enforcement by the sheriff." My father's mouth opened and closed. He looked like he couldn't decide whether to rage or beg. He chose rage, because rage was all he had left. "This is insane," he shouted. "She is doing this to punish me. This is revenge." Judge Alvarez's expression didn't change. "This is consequence, Mr. Hartwell. Sit down." He didn't sit. He couldn't. His legs were shaking too hard. I watched him lose control of his body, and it should have satisfied me more than it did. Instead, I felt a cold emptiness, the kind that comes when you finally accept a person will never be what you needed. He lunged toward me, stopping short because the bailiff stepped between us. "Tegan," he hissed, voice low now, dangerous. "If you do this, you'll destroy your own father." I looked at him, really looked, and the truth rose in my chest like a straight line. "You destroyed yourself," I said quietly. It wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, it was simply accurate. Judge Alvarez struck the gavel once. Hearing concluded. The bailiff guided my father back to his table. Grayson didn't look at him. Grayson looked at the papers like they were a grave. I gathered my tote bag, slipped my phone inside, and walked out without rushing. The hallway outside the courtroom smelled like old coffee and printer toner. My knees felt steady. My hands felt warm. My heart felt oddly calm, like a storm had finally passed and left the air clean. I walked to the elevator and pressed the button. The doors opened, and for a second I caught my reflection in the polished metal. Cardigan, scuffed tote, hair in a knot. Same woman my father had described. But my eyes were different. They didn't look apologetic anymore. In the lobby, I stepped outside into sharp daylight. The city noise hit me immediately. Cars, voices. Footsteps, life continuing like it hadn't just changed. I sat in my car for a moment and let my forehead rest against the steering wheel. I thought I'd cry. I thought I'd shake. Instead, I exhaled, slow, and felt something inside me unclench for the first time in years. Then my phone buzzed. A message from the locksmith. On my way, confirm suite number. I replied with one word, confirmed. I drove to the Calderon building, the one my father called a shoebox and a shame. He was right about one thing. It was old brick. It had narrow stairwells and worn railings. It had history in every crack. But it was mine. I parked across the street and watched people move through the glass doors. Tenants, delivery drivers, a woman walking a dog. A normal building, a normal day. And upstairs, on the third floor, my father's firm still existed in a borrowed space, pretending it owned the world. The locksmith arrived 20 minutes later, a quiet man with a toolbox and a neutral face. He didn't ask questions. Professionals rarely do. I met him in the hallway outside Suite 310. The carpet was worn from years of expensive shoes packing on cheap backing. He looked at me, ID. I handed it over. He checked it, nodded, and got to work. The first lock clicked free. Then the second. The sound was small, almost polite, but it felt like a chapter closing. At 4:12 p.m., the office manager stepped into the hallway and froze when she saw me. Her eyes widened. Tegan. I didn't correct her tone. I didn't smile. I held out the writ, single-page official seal. You have until tomorrow, I said. You should start packing now. She stared at the paper, then at me, and something shifted in her face. Not anger, not fear. Relief. She lowered her voice. He told us you were unstable. He told us you were trying to steal from him. I kept my voice even. He says a lot of things. She swallowed. Are you going to call the police? I shook my head once. No, I'm just removing access. That was the truth. I wasn't here to humiliate him in the hallway. I wasn't here to scream in front of his employees. I wasn't here to make a scene he could twist into another story. I was here to end the benefit. Quietly. Legally. Finally. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, the top floor unit my father had never seen, with windows that looked out over the city lights. I opened my laptop and watched the recorded hearing timestamp on the court portal update. Dismissed with prejudice. Referral initiated. Writ issued. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt clean. Like someone finally wiped a foggy mirror, and I could see myself clearly. My phone buzzed again. A new email. Subject line, trust amendment. My breath caught. Not because I needed the trust, I didn't. But because the trust was what he used as a leash. I opened the email. It was from my grandmother's attorney, the one I hadn't spoken to in years. There was a single attachment and a short note. Tegan, your grandmother instructed me to send this only if your father ever filed against you. She was very specific. My fingers went cold. I opened the attachment. It was a letter, dated 4 years ago, signed in her careful handwriting. Tegan, if you are reading this, it means Thomas finally did what I always feared he would do. Please stop blaming yourself. You were never unstable. You were surrounded by someone who needed you to be small. I structured the trust so he could never touch it, and so you would never need his permission to be free. I am proud of you, even if you never hear it from him. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Not because I was sad, because I was seen. And then I scrolled down to the last page of the amendment. My father had been telling the court he needed conservatorship to protect my trust. But the trust had already been moved into a foundation with a board, and I was the chair. He couldn't control it. He couldn't claim it. He couldn't even inherit it. The moment he filed, the final clause activated. Automatic disinheritance for legal harassment. I sat back slowly, the air leaving my lungs in a silent laugh that didn't sound like joy. It sounded like fate finally showing its hand. He hadn't just lost today. He'd triggered his own permanent removal from everything he was trying to steal. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. Down on the street, headlights slid by, ordinary and indifferent. Somewhere, my father was probably still shouting at someone, trying to force the world to bend back into his story. But stories don't change facts. And facts don't care who screams. I picked up my phone, found his contact, and deleted it without blocking. Because blocking is a conversation. Deleting is absence. Then I turned off the lights, left the room quiet, and let the silence he tried to use against me become the first peace I'd ever owned.